On an afternoon in 1915, a group of elegantly dressed women arrived in a taxi at London's famous high-end department store, Selfridges. Wearing furs, jewelry, and expensive dresses with perfect makeup, they were warmly welcomed by the staff. It wasn't until they left that the staff realized these well-dressed women had just stolen valuable jewels, furs, and clothing from the store. These weren't ordinary shoppers. They were members of London's first recorded all-female criminal gang, the 40 Elephants. The gang was formed in 1870 during the Victorian era, even before the famous Peaky Blinders gang. At the time, the Elephant and Castle district in South London was controlled by a group of male gangsters. Occasionally, male gang members would recruit women to help them, but often, after getting their assistance, they would provide little or no reward. Female gang members working independently in a male-dominated gang world were often disregarded, but this changed when a woman named Mary Carr, a master of deception, appeared. Mary Carr brought together all the lower-class women in the gangs, recruiting those who had fallen into poverty or had to resort to prostitution for survival. She formed an all-female gang, naming it after the district they came from, Elephant and Castle, and called it the 40 Elephants. Mary Carr's specialty was theft, and she became the first queen of this organization. Under her leadership, the 40 Elephants targeted wealthy businessmen and powerful upper-class aristocrats in London. They would steal from stores, lure victims, and extort them. Mary Carr was clever and cunning. She never kept the stolen goods for herself. Instead, she sold them to third parties to accumulate wealth. She also negotiated with male gangs, reaching a peace treaty in which the male gangs agreed to offer protection and occasional help to the 40 Elephants in exchange for a share of their earnings. In 1916, Mary Carr retired and passed the throne to a more powerful female apprentice, Alice Diamond. Under Alice Diamond's leadership, the 40 Elephants became the most famous and longest-lasting all-female gang in British history. Alice Diamond was born in Southwark, near Elephant and Castle, in a family with several members involved in crime. Her father had been imprisoned for assaulting the son of the London mayor, and her brother was a member of a male gang in Elephant and Castle. Alice began stealing at the age of 17, and even had a record of being warned by the police. In the early 20th century, at just 20 years old, Alice Diamond took over the 40 Elephants theft organization. She adopted the nickname Diamond Annie, as her last name literally meant diamond in English, and she was known for wearing diamond rings and using them to punch her enemies. Standing at 5 feet 9 inches, Alice was decisive, ruthless, and exceptionally gifted at theft. The London police considered her one of the most cunning thieves in the city's history. Once, when the police believed they had caught Diamond Annie in the act at a jewelry store, she managed to slip the stolen gems into the detective's pocket during the interrogation. Under Alice Diamond's leadership, the 40 Elephants gang quickly grew in power, and Diamond Annie became known as the Queen Annie of both London's underworld and society at large. Alice Diamond devised various clever strategies for the gang's thefts. Gang members would often dress as affluent women of London's high society. To steal a 600-pound expensive fur coat, 2 female members dressed glamorously and visited a high-end boutique. Using the store's privacy rules, which allowed customers to change in private, they managed to hide the coat in their own outer garments. The store realized the coat was missing 30 minutes later. In a trick called secret affection, a large group would swarm a counter, asking to view the jewelry. Disguised women would pass an item between them until a disguised accomplice took it. If the store owner noticed, the women would loudly argue that they hadn't stolen the jewelry. In another technique known as the bell trick, a member would try on an expensive necklace, memorize its style, then have a second member bring in a counterfeit necklace and swap it. Alice Diamond even created a bait trick, intentionally visiting a store where she was well known. When staff became wary, it made it easier for her accomplices to commit thefts. Alice also upgraded her gang's tools. Before visiting luxury shops in London's West End, the women wore coats and skirts with hidden pockets. Once inside the store, they would quickly fill their hidden pockets with thousands of pounds worth of merchandise, some of which was even hidden in hats or baggy pants. In one instance, a 19-year-old gang member was caught at William Whitley's store in Bayswater, and police were shocked to find 45 stolen items hidden beneath her skirt. The police rarely managed to catch members of the 40 Elephants, thanks to Alice Diamond's rules. By splitting the gang into smaller groups, she effectively reorganized them, and robberies would often occur across the city simultaneously, many of which were decoy performances to distract the police. Alice Diamond equipped her gang with luxurious cars that were more advanced than police cars. When a robbery took place, the getaway speed left the police struggling to pursue. Often, when the police caught up to the speeding car, they found it empty, as the stolen goods had already been handed off to a walking member before the car had even taken off. The police chase was merely a smokescreen. As Detective Ambrose Askew said, "The 40 Elephants are the smartest pickpockets in the country. My colleagues believe they are the most skilled thieves in the world. They operate across the country, and their methods are so good that we've never seen them take anything, and we've never recovered any stolen goods." Alice Diamond also created a gang code for the 40 Elephants, outlining how the gang operated democratically, with detailed instructions on how to divide the loot from a robbery. When gang members were imprisoned, their families were cared for by the gang. Members always provided each other with alibis. The gang's shared treasury was used to help struggling members, pay for lawyer fees, and fund the lavish lifestyles of the gang's leaders. Joining the gang was like becoming part of a union, with fair benefits for everyone. Diamond ruthlessly protected the gang's territory. If outsiders stole from stores in their area, they were required to pay a percentage of their earnings. If they refused, they would face personal threats, kidnapping, and beatings until they agreed. The media's portrayal of the 40 Elephants expanded their legend, often describing them as a group of well-dressed, luxurious thieves. But their enemies often overlooked one fact. Like other street gangs, the 40 Elephants were brutal. To survive in London's underworld for a long time, you needed protection from higher powers. Besides theft, Diamond's women had another main job, setting up honey traps to lure members of high society and then blackmailing them. Many aristocratic white men, to protect their careers and reputations, were often forced to become the gang's protectors. Alice Diamond became the undisputed queen of London's gangland in the 1920s and 1930s. She loved the luxurious lifestyle and often hosted lavish cocktail parties at bars, enjoying herself with her gang members. As her fame grew, so did Alice's desire for control over the gang. She demanded absolute loyalty from her members, even insisting that relationships and marriages had to be approved by her. Under her growing thirst for power, Queen Anne became more reckless and her actions became more flamboyant. In 1925, a gang member got married without her permission, and when Alice found out, she immediately retaliated against the member and her husband. At a 40 Elephants party held at the Canterbury Social Club, she, drunk, attacked the member's house with her underlings, using bottles, stones, and clubs, severely injuring the husband. Such crude criminal methods were far from Diamond's usual behavior. Eventually, the police, who had been unable to gather enough evidence, finally got the chance to prosecute her, and Diamond was sentenced to 18 months in prison. When she was released, the 40 Elephants had a new queen at the helm. Instead of fighting for control, Diamond chose to switch careers and run a brothel, while still mentoring aspiring young thieves. Alice Diamond passed away at 55 from multiple sclerosis, never marrying. One of her protégés, Shirley Pitts, became the recognized queen of the gangland in the 1960s, though she was not as prominent as Diamond had been in her prime. The 40 Elephants were one of London's longest-lasting gangs, surviving until the 1990s. When asked why women joined the gang, the reasons were often poignant, with poverty being the greatest driving force. For lower-class women at that time, unless they struck it rich, changing their fate was nearly impossible. Their wages were much lower than men's, and with the hardest jobs, they often struggled to support their families. So, even if they went to prison for theft, they would usually return to the gang once released. However, some women joined simply for the thrill. As one retired member explained, "For women who don't want to clock in every day, living like a machine, life didn't offer many choices. You either work hard to survive, waste your life aimlessly, or become a pickpocket. If you don't mind a little illegal activity, it's actually quite a good life."